So have Nike completely ruined the Vaporfly? In today's video, I thought I would give you my opinion of the Vaporfly 4, having now run 100 kilometers in this shoe across my training. I've been using it for some intervals, some long runs, and also a fast 5K down at Parkrun. So it seems the perfect time to share my impressions of a shoe that, let's face it, has got mixed reviews out there online at the moment. And to be honest, I think it is a little bit misunderstood. So the Vaporfly 4, if we dial things back a little bit, is the original super shoe. I ran plenty of PBs back in sort of 2020, 2021 in this shoe. And then I also moved on to the Vaporfly 3, which last year I used to run my 5K PB. And now we are on to the 4th iteration of the Vaporfly, which I'm yet to race in, but I certainly would consider racing in this shoe, but for only one distance, which I'll get onto in a little bit. But some pretty drastic changes in this one from Nike. The biggest being the stack height. This is now a lot more minimal than previous Vaporflies, which typically would have around 40 millimeters of stack height in the rear. We now only have 35 millimeters, which may not sound too much of a difference, but that is half a centimeter of Zoom X that is no longer present in this Vaporfly 4. And of all the 4 iterations of the Vaporfly that we've seen, this is probably the biggest change in recent times. So before I jump into my likes and dislikes of this shoe, I thought I would go over some of the specs. So this shoe is on sale now for £240, and this sample was provided by the guys at Prodirect Running. I have an affiliate link in the description if you're looking to pick up this shoe, and I think there may even be a few colorways of this shoe that are already a little bit on the reduced side, so you might be able to pick up a bargain if you're looking to get this one. We've got 35 millimeters of stack in the rear, dropping to 29 in the forefoot. As with all other Nike Vaporflies, we've got a carbon fiber plate, which you can kind of see through this quite prominent groove in the bottom of the shoe. I have found that it's picked up a few stones, as grooves in bottoms of shoes tend to do, which did damage a little bit of the Zoom X here. It's not affected the performance, but that is something to note. A little bit irritating, I think, having these grooves in the bottom of shoes, but I understand they do help when they come to propulsion. And we've got a fairly good coverage of outsole on the front of this shoe, but not so much on the rear of this shoe. As you can see here, this area here is all completely exposed Zoom X, which I think may cause some issues in terms of durability. So moving on to my likes and dislikes. I think one of the biggest plus points of this shoe is it is now much more tailored to the 5K racing distance. So Nike have almost stripped back the Vaporfly here, reduced some of the stack height, reduced the weight. This is the lightest of the Vaporflies that we've ever seen, which is definitely a plus point. And I found at my 5K pace, which is around 3 minutes per kilometer, that this shoe makes that pace feel somewhat comfortable. Obviously, 5K pace is always going to be a little bit challenging, but it just feels smooth, efficient, and the shoe almost gets lost on your foot because of the weight. I used it at Parkrun around 15:30 in a high training week on not the fastest of courses. So in terms of performance, I'm not worried about this one in terms of the lower stack height. It seems to still be as good, if not better, than the Vaporfly 3 that I used to run my previous 5K PB in. I also find the fit on this shoe to be exceptional. Probably of all the Vaporflies, this one seems to fit the best. They've improved the upper. It's a little bit more narrow in the forefoot, which I actually like. I found that the previous version of the Vaporfly was a little bit baggy. And the tongue in this one was sort of an asymmetrical design, whereas now they've gone for a more traditional sort of sit on top of the foot tongue. And I find that with this lacing system, I can get a really good secure lockdown, almost like a spike, which I quite like, especially for racing. Some people have reported a little bit of heel slipping with this one. I've found with a good lockdown that hasn't been an issue. There is 2 loops if you want to do the runner's knot, but I haven't needed to do that. Also, I know this is a sort of more performance review, but I really like the look of the Vaporfly 4, especially in this Proto colorway. You may see I've got a little bit of a collection of Protos colorways going on behind me, the Alphafly 3, the Vaporfly 3, and now the Vaporfly 4. I think a white shoe, we all know it, makes you a little bit faster on race day. So the overall aesthetic of this shoe feels good, and if you feel good, you're gonna run fast. So moving on to my dislikes, and as I said, one of the plus points was how this is now more tailored towards the 5K and 10K distance, I would say. But that is also one of its downsides. It's now no longer as versatile as the previous versions. I would be comfortable running a marathon in the Vaporfly 3 and the Vaporfly 2. With the Vaporfly 4, I probably wouldn't. I would say 5K and 10Ks would be the only races that I would consider using this shoe, just because it is a little bit more minimal. So one of the downsides is it's a little bit less versatile than maybe the previous version. So if you're looking for a super shoe, this is £240 and it's only really going to be great for those 5K, 10K distances. Obviously, you could use it for a marathon, but I personally would probably want to go for an Alphafly, which has a little bit more cushioning for those longer distances. So you might want to consider spending a little bit more money on an Alphafly if you're looking to do half marathons and marathons in a Nike super shoe. Another one of my concerns, as I mentioned at the start of this video, is this area here of ZoomX, which is exposed on the bottom of this shoe. You've got plenty of outsole coverage on the front, but when it comes to these sections where this groove is, there is no coverage, which I found the ZoomX here is already showing signs of wear after 100 kilometers. Stones or anything are going to damage this area of the shoe pretty quickly, because it is just such a soft foam, which obviously is great underfoot, feels super bouncy, but in terms of durability, I think, yeah, it's going to show quite a quick signs of degradation. Yeah, I think that's the word. But yeah, there is a little bit of outsole coverage at the bottom here. I think personally Nike could have moved that up a little bit just to give this area of the shoe a bit more coverage. One of my only other dislikes with this shoe is I found that the ZoomX seems to be compressing quite quickly with this one. What I mean by compression is the areas where my foot is landing on the ground seems to be making this midsole like squish down a little bit quicker than I'd seen in the previous Vaporflies. So Alphafly versus Vaporfly. If you're looking to pick up one super shoe from Nike, I would say that there is an outright winner for me personally. I tend to run more marathons, more half marathons, and prefer that sort of race distance, and I like a shoe with plenty of cushioning underfoot. So the Vaporfly, for me, is now maybe a little bit less desirable because it is more tailored to the shorter distances. I might be tempted to spend a little bit more money on an Alphafly than a Vaporfly. But that being said, if you're someone who is racing 5K and 10K distances, you've got no interest in marathons and half marathons, then this is the shoe for you in terms of being super lightweight, super direct, and is going to basically give you all of the characteristics that you need to run a fast 5 and 10Ks. One thing I would say about the Alphafly versus the Vaporfly, there is now definitely a much more polarized sort of purpose between the two shoes. I think beforehand we had a Vaporfly and an Alphafly, and it just came down to personal preference. You could use them for any distance, and yeah, most people would just have a favorite. Now I feel like this is a 5K racing shoe and this is a marathon racing shoe. So if anything, for the consumer, it makes things a little bit easier when it comes to picking your next race day shoe based off the distance that you plan on racing. So moving on to my final thoughts, do I think the Vaporfly 4 is a flop? I think absolutely not. In terms of performance, it is definitely still up there with the best super shoes on the market. I think maybe why people were a little bit underwhelmed with this one, and I was one of those people, is because there are a lot of super shoes out there at the moment that have advanced obviously over the last few years. So this doesn't necessarily stand out as that original incredible super shoe feeling underfoot like it once did back in sort of 2020. There's a lot of competition now that has caught up and offer slightly different things. I would recommend this shoe to anyone looking to race a 5K up to the 10K distance, someone who's looking for a direct, fast, snappy feel underfoot, and one of the lightest carbon racing shoes on the market. It wouldn't suit the marathon distance, in my opinion. So yeah, that pretty much summarizes my views on the Nike Vaporfly 4. I hope you've enjoyed my review. of the shoe. If you have, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you like this hat that I've been wearing as well, it's from a company here in the UK called Team Varga, and I've got a discount code below for 15% off if you're interested. But until next time, aspire to run, run to inspire, and I'll see you again soon.